wrong way. Right, hello, good afternoon. I've got the afternoon after lunch slot, so we'll need a little bit of energy. I've got about 1,000 slides, 15 minutes, so I'm going to go quite quickly. It's mostly pictures, so don't worry. Look, so I'm Tom. I run the Government Digital Service, which is part of the Cabinet Office, and I've been doing that for, I don't know, 2.5, nearly 3 years, and it's a fantastic job. I'm going to talk a little bit about what's next for gov.uk, and more broadly, what is next for digital services between the central government and the state, and how we approach that. So over the last year, 6 months, we've been asking ourselves some pretty big questions at GDS. Fundamentally, we've been asking ourselves, what can we learn now that a lot of governments have caught up and overtaken us? What can we learn from other governments and how they run their digital services? But also, what are the unique features of the UK society? What stops us from just copying Singapore or Denmark or Estonia? What is unique to the UK character? What assumptions have we made about how digital services have to work in government? But also, what are the things that we really need to protect and keep and not let go of in the pursuit of the new? Fundamentally, we need to understand what's changed and what does the next generation of digital government services look like. And that's what we've been trying to work out. And we've been starting with, what is the user interface of government? And it's quite a complex subject. A lot of people, I think, if you're in and around government, you tend to think that government is ministers on the Today programme or the PM at the dispatch box and all of the hoopla that goes with politics. But most of government is services, and most of it is service delivery. So the analogy I try to use when we're talking about the user interface of government is other industries, the commercial sector. So if you look at banking, right? 25 years ago-ish, most people's user interface of banking was a bricks and mortar place that you go in, you either go to the counter or you go to the cash machine. And over the last 25 years, that moved mostly to call centres, and then it moved to the web, and then it's mostly moved to mobile apps in your pocket. You put your hand up if you've got your bank as an app in your pocket. Right? That could have gone wrong. So for most people, that's been a really clear progression. And we need to think about government in the same way. So in the same sort of time period, we're a bit weird in the UK because most advanced democratic nations have citizen centres, so places you can go to access physical people to deal with government services. We don't. We have these slightly sort of siloed services like all the things that DWP do in job centres, which is significantly more than just helping people find jobs. But we also rely on the third sector, on citizen advice. We also heavily rely on things like the post office for people to go in and still do postal services. So a lot of the user interface of government is still physical, and it's also call centres. We have millions and millions and millions of calls every year into our call centres in the big operational departments. I won't make you put your hands up again, but I bet most of you in the last year have spent time on a government call centre being told, surprisingly busy at the moment, so we're going to take a little time, but we really care about your call. And by the way, have you checked gov.uk? This is not a good user interface for citizens, and that's problematic for reasons I'll explain. Mostly, we think the user interface for government is gov.uk, and we are very, very proud of gov.uk. It used to be 1,800 different websites, it's now one. And over the last 10 years, we've maintained gov.uk, and we've kept that grip, which I think is incredibly important. And this is, for the majority of users, this is the user interface of government, but it hasn't really changed that much in 10 years. And also the paradigm of how we expect people to interact with government really hasn't changed much, I think, in the last 20 or 30 years. So really quickly, this is the paradigm of how we expect people to interact with government most of the time, unless you're going into a bricks and mortar place. So people start on gov.uk, the front door of government, but of course it's not the front door of government. Google's the front door of government. So you go to Google and you see if you can find the right page, and Dan and his team work with Google to make sure we're usually right at the top of the results. So in this case, somebody's applying for a passport, and they go on and they get to a page on gov.uk that's beautifully designed, beautifully written, works on a mobile. It is accessible. It's a good thing. And they go through and effectively they fill in a form, right? They fill in a form, they can upload some things and attach things. They can take payments through our payments platform in GDS. And really good services like the passport they keep you updated. They tell you what's happening with your application afterwards so that you don't need to call the call center 2 weeks later to say, where is my thing? And that's good, right? That's a really good one. And it's really important to note there are way more services that are like this. So note this is like, go to question 133. There are many, many thousands of services that are still PDF forms that we expect people to download, print, and post. And that's really bad. There are also services that we still expect people to send government documents to the government to prove that the government's issued a government document, and we still expect people to wait up to 16 weeks or longer for an answer. Even if we fix those things, that paradigm is still, you understand what the policy is, you fill in a form, and you wait to be told yes or no, right? And it's good, it's better than it used to be, but I think that paradigm needs to be thought through. So very briefly, the case for change. This gets a bit pestily, so consultants in the audience, you'll love this. So first off, economics. Whoever, we're probably going to have a general election next calendar year, or at least by sort of January 2025. Whoever takes over has a fairly grim economic problem day one. And for the civil service, that means that government budgets, department budgets, service budgets are going to be under pressure. I really like this. It's old, but it's called the solo paradox. And I think it works for government as well. So government department budgets are going to be under pressure. And really, I don't think we've seen the tangible, cashable benefits of digital in government as much as perhaps we expected a decade ago. There can't be many industries that go all in on digital and then their overall headcount increases and the cost of running services increases, right? If we were a private sector company, people would be going, that trend's wrong. So we are going to have to take this very, very seriously. We haven't cashed out in the way that we probably should have done, and we're going to have to in the next Parliament. Social and technological I'm going to put together because I think they're related. Fundamentally, we're seeing a degrading in trust, not just in politics, but in the institutions of government and in younger people in the concept of democracy in total. People still trust the civil service more than politicians. I don't have an opinion on that because I'm a civil servant, but that is degrading as well. So people are stopping trust in government and democracy. Closer to home, this is a survey on gov.uk, and you can see over 65s are very satisfied, and there's a similar chart that shows they believe the content that they read on gov.uk. So that's like 90%. Under 25s, it's about 50-50. So half people don't trust what they're reading on gov.uk, which is the government website, the non-political facts of the laws and the rules of society. And that's a major problem. That is a major problem. And it's about to get worse. We're going to go into next year, which I think in the UK and the US will be the first AI-powered disinformation campaigns around a general election, 2 general elections. And if you think the possibility of infinitely scalable generative AI, hyper-personalized targeting of people to change their minds, it's really quite scary. And the reason I mention it is a lot of these sort of things that are going to be coming up, we're not ready to deal with them yet. And I expect we're going to see the trust in democracy and our fundamental institutions of state in the UK and in other democratic nations decreasing correspondingly. So this, for me, is a fundamental reason why we need to act now. It's going to be happier in a minute, I promise. Technologically, I really like this. This is back sort of when GDS was founded. And you can see in the early days, that little green wiggly line is how many people were using gov.uk on a mobile. And you can see it was like 10-15% back in 2012. And this is a few years old, so this is just running up to the end of 2021. 65% of journeys on gov.uk are on mobile. And if you look at services for low-income people, like universal credit, that number is above 90% now. So fundamentally, in the last 10 years, and right, this is like Tech 101, everything's gone mobile, and I don't think we've adapted fast enough. For most people in that consumer sector, whether it's banking, whether it's travel, whether it's social media, whether it's e-commerce, a good digital experience is always mobile app-based now. It is highly personalized. It's ruthlessly simple for the user. The reason you can do things on Amazon in 4 clicks is because they don't want you to get bored, right? we need to follow these patterns. And it's integrated with personal user data. Bit more controversial when you're government, but we need to look at these patterns. And a lot of these other nations around the world, they've adapted in a way that we haven't. So this is the UN digital rankings. We were #1 back in 2016, and we've dropped it's every 2 years, we've dropped each time, and we're now down at 11th, I think that is, below Australia and lots of other nations. So other nations have adapted, and we really haven't. We've continued building and supporting really good things like gov.uk, but we haven't adapted. So we want to look at the next generation of digital services for government, and we've been thinking about what that might look like. And I really like this quote. This is non-political. It happens to be from the Tony Blair Institute for Change, but this is a really interesting quote, that citizens should expect proactive public services. So you don't go to a website, fill in a form, and wait to be told whether you've got what you've applied for or not, but proactive services. Services that make the citizen feel like government is working for them rather than against them. And I think that's the principle of what we want to be building. These are prototypes. These are not working software. This does not exist. Okay? So what we're looking at is going pretty heavy on mobile. So we're going to be building a gov.uk app, and we're going to be using the fact that we've built the gov.uk one login service that allows you to have one account, one proof of ID, and one username and password to allow a logged-in, personalised experience of government for everyone. And there are around 8 or 9 things we think this is going to do. First off, you'll use it to prove your identity, but then you'll be able to access an account that will show you all of the data that government holds on you. A lot of countries have this already, but why on earth can you not see all the data that government holds on you? I still have all my data in bits of paper in a filing cabinet, and we're a quarter of the way through the 21st century. So that's the first thing. You'll identify yourself. Secondly, we want to be able to store digital credentials. We're way behind the rest of the world on this, and we need to store things. We've identified at least 20 things that people might want to store. You can see on here, a passport, national insurance number. It may be your veteran's ID. It may be your lasting power of attorney. It might be your driving license, but we shouldn't require people to carry around paper and bits of plastic anymore. So we'll store those details and those certificates securely. We send millions and millions and millions of letters still, and again, a quarter of the way through the 21st century, we're sending letters out to people. It's a terrible way of interacting with citizens. Like, you can't measure any of it. I don't need to explain to you all, you'll work in tech. I don't need to explain why letters are bad. We want to copy the Danish model. In Denmark, they abolished letters altogether between the government and citizens and built an interactive mailbox that allows a two-way dialogue with government. Pretty simple, but we think we can build that. You'll be able to ask it things. We're not going to recreate the whole of gov.uk on here, but we want people to be able to ask questions through this. And we may or may not use a chat sort of generative AI interface. We're experimenting with that, and we'll see whether we get there or not. But one way or another, you need to be able to search for things and ask. People need to apply for things in the same way I've already shown you, and people need to be able to book appointments. But fundamentally, they should be able to do the whole journey through their phone. And when you're filling in that form, it should pre-fill. Most forms should be able to pre-fill based on the data that you already have in different databases across government with your consent. So you don't fill in the form, you just say you want to apply for it. Really, we want to get to the next level though. Proactive services for me means you don't even have to pre-fill the form. We tell you you're probably eligible for this thing, or your passport is about to expire, or we can tell that you've just had another child, you're eligible for this benefit. Click here and we'll do the rest. They already do that in Singapore. They already take payments straight out of their app into your bank account. And it's proactive government. It's government that feels like it works for you rather than against you. We need to be very careful with notifications. This is a really easy one here. Your vehicle tax is due in July. We need to make sure this doesn't get politicized, that we're not sort of using notifications for political reasons. But wouldn't it be great if you didn't have to worry about that next thing you're meant to do with government, that sort of nagging fear that HMRC's typing their letter right now and you can't remember what you're meant to have done? If we could make it proactive so that we help people, I think we'll start building that trust back and people will think that government is there to work for them. So it's not all about the app, but we're going heavily in that personalised mobile-first experience, and we think that's what's next. And I'm going to stop there. Thank you.